Get ready for some upbeat banter, plenty of laughs, and a whole lot of love for the game and our team. This is Buds and Blue Jays. And now your hosts, Riley McConnell and Jesse Burrell.
Good evening, everybody. It is Sunday, July 7th, and welcome to episode 192 of Buds and Blue Jays. It's your place for all things related to the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm Jesse Burrell, joined as always by Riley McConnell, and today on the show, we're going to recap what was a series win to start the West Coast trip for the Toronto Blue Jays against the Seattle Mariners, and in order to do that, we actually needed some help on this episode. So we're bringing in a guy who knows a thing or two about baseball. He's co-host of the Coach's Sons podcast. He's a passionate Mariners fan. And most importantly, he's a bud of Buds and Blue Jays. It's Chris Krouchick. Chris, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Hey, close for a first time. It's Krouchick.
Damn.
But that's all right. Listen, man, this is kind of crazy. Long way. I think the first time we ever spoke was like Reddit or something. And I made an erroneous post that got blocked immediately because I was self-promoting or something. But it's awesome to be here. We've kind of been in touch since day one, at least of my podcast. So I'm excited to be here. You're the only Blue Jays guys I tune into. That's for sure.
Love to hear it, man. It's like, Chris, long overdue. We talk all the time, interact on Twitter and whatnot. If you guys have not listened, if you are Buds and Blue Jays listeners, viewers, Coach's Sons podcast gives you more baseball content as far as league-wide stuff, and these boys know what they're talking. Just dropped an episode, Chris and Andrew's latest episode on trade deadline. Some wild speculations going on. Absolutely love to hear. These guys come unhinged sometimes. I know that, myself, I'm a reserved human being, and I never go off the rails. No, Chris and Andrew know what they're doing. Chris, super glad to have you, man.
Glad to be here.
Yep. Today on the show, though, we are going to talk about the series that was, including George Springer hitting what might have been his biggest home run of the season, Yariel Rodriguez putting together yet another fantastic start. We're going to just marvel at Dalton Varsho's outfield defense. And with the trade deadline roughly 3 weeks away, I figured this is a good time for the Mariners and Toronto Blue Jays to maybe talk some trades, to kind of throw together some mock trades, see if we can come on a deal that these two teams are going to make within the trade deadline in 3 weeks' time. But before we do that, Chris, I want to issue an apology on behalf of our Toronto Blue Jays and what we did not only to the Seattle Mariners in your barn, but also we couldn't even help your team in the standings as we let Houston come to our barn and take 3 out of 4 against us. So it must be tough sweating right now with the Mariners only 2 games up on the Houston Astros out in the AL West right now.
I am more concerned about the Astros and what they're doing than whatever Seattle's got going on. So today they got walked off mid-game. It's like, you know what? Yes, we want to win, but even with that loss, you're like, okay, they didn't get a game on us, but I knew they were coming. I said it on our show. It's like, you should have stepped on their throat a month ago when they were dead in the water, 10 games under, and now here we are, and it just feels like we're just gonna go by the wayside and might even miss the playoffs at this point. It doesn't feel good to be a Mariners fan right now.
It's got to be the most uncomfortable division leader in all of baseball.
By far, you should see what Mariners Twitter looks like right now.
I was going to say, well, Blue Jays Twitter has been a dumpster fire as well, so I'm sure it's much of the same here. But with that being said, Chris, I want to get your thought on what is your view of the Toronto Blue Jays season so far, kind of from the outside looking in, because Riley and I are into it. We're deep into this thing. We've talked about it a lot, but from a more casual Blue Jays fan, what is your thought on how the Blue Jays have done so far this season?
I would say certainly underperform, right? You're 8 games under right now.
I think we're 10, even maybe 8. You're right.
Not good. Whatever. 8 to 10. That's a bad spot to be.
Yes.
We're mincing hairs. It feels like, again, certainly underperforming, but I don't know where that's coming from, right? Vlad's doing his thing. Well, I lied. I take that back. I do know where it's coming from. You're a spitting image of the Mariners in some fashion. You're treating Justin Turner like he's supposed to be your guy. We're doing that with Jorge Polanco and Ty France. You've got a bunch of question marks in second base, some overachievers, right? This Horowitz fella. I know Riley's favorite guy, Danny Jansen, kind of hanging around there. Like Dalton Varsho came out hot. Now it's just kind of a lot of underperforming. And if you remember at the very beginning of the season, I was tweeting at you guys saying, I think Varsho gets shipped out. So I still hold that true. We'll see if he's in your trade proposal at some point. But it's just a lot of underperformers that you thought were going to be better. And even going to the pitching side, you got Gosman somewhat struggling. I own Chris Bassett in a dynasty league. I know he's
congratulations.
Old, yeah, he's okay, I suppose. Barrios is doing well, but then we talked pre-show. Your bullpen, I don't have any. I felt good, like, hey, maybe Seattle can do something.
What bullpen?
Yeah.
What bullpen?
Insert. I feel good about Seattle's insert guy here. I don't feel the same way about whatever you guys got going on up here. Chad Green, I guess, is quite the surprise. But I think Riley tweeted like Zach Pop comes in the game. You're like, hey, we could just
tie ball game, 8th inning, and you're throwing this guy out there when we know what we've seen. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm all about repeat offenders if you're going to blow high leverage situations. So the fact that we got out of that was a win in its own. Even if we go on to lose that ball game, we didn't lose the ball game at that time. Where I thought, I think I was watching. I think I was watching from standing up, because at that point, that was an intense game. The game today was an intense ball game, and then you throw Zach Pop in a high leverage situations. It's like, man, making my blood boil here.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it just feels. I know your guys' expectation was very high, and it's just not what it meant to be, and it's got to be a tough spot to be in. But when I say, it's not great feeling a Mariners fan, I'm in first place by 2 games. So you're mad at me for even talking like that. But, and especially considering what the East looks like right now and how you guys stack up, I can't assume you guys are thrilled with what's going on. And I know you're not, because I've listened a bunch of times.
And it's Blue Jays fans everywhere who feel that way too. And Chris, you talked about the similarities between the two franchises. There's even more than you think. Like, if you go back 20 years or so, the Mariners went on a super long playoff drought. The Toronto Blue Jays went on a super long playoff drought. We can say, quote unquote, wasted the career of Felix Hernandez. We did the same with Roy Halladay. Both of our teams now have kind of struggling young players who have the highest upside in the world, but Julio Rodriguez has been a little bit frustrating, and Bo Bichette has been a little bit frustrating for us. It's like looking in a mirror here of these two franchises. It's wild. But with that being said, a lot to talk about. We can get into the bullpen a little bit more later here, but on the field, and Riley, I'll start with you. Who's your player of the series? The one player that caught your attention the most for the Toronto Blue Jays?
So I'm going to switch it up. Usually me. I usually go with the position players, but I mean, we have to start giving the most love, I think, of the series to a pitcher. And it's not because he was the best player, but it's his best performance to date with Yariel Rodriguez. His 6th inning, 6 strikeouts, only allowing 1 hit. I mean, this is something that I didn't think he had in him. I thought we were going to get a lot of, 2 times through the order and out. He was working rather efficiently. I think the fact that he went 6 innings shows quite a promising future. He's still developing at the big league level. He's not a spring chicken type prospect. I mean, this guy has played professional baseball, obviously not in the major leagues. And I think, to be honest, with Yariel Rodriguez in this start, I think coaches will be more confident, players be more confident, and honestly, Toronto fan base, you should be excited the next time he toes the rubber. I mean, it was a heck of a performance. I hope we get more of the same, and I think we will, Jesse.
Yeah, it looked good, because I was at the game on Canada Day when he started, and he was awesome then, didn't allow a hit until the 6th inning, and sure enough, he did that here. I have his line, 6 innings pitched, just 1 hit, walked 2, struck out 6. It was his first big league win, too, for Yariel Rodriguez, who you've talked about having the big historic career, playing all over the world, to finally come to the big leagues and get that win look good. I can't say I saw this coming, to be honest. I was really surprised. Yariel Rodriguez had a whip of 1.5 before these 2 starts, but it's good to know, looking at Yariel Rodriguez, that this is the type of stuff he can show and he can put together, because he's under contract for 5 more years, and the Blue Jays have rotation question marks as it is. Knowing that Yariel Rodriguez can come in and can show these flashes of dominance is a great sign for our team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what do you think, Chris? I mean, clearly behind Luis Castillo, he was the 2nd best pitcher in this series. How did he, again, from a Mariners fan's perspective, you can keep a fairly neutral base. I know you didn't love to see a guy you've really never heard of up until this year go 6 innings against your ball club. But I mean, in a way, you kind of got to tip the cap and be like, well, like he obviously didn't have the blue chip attached to him, just kind of came out of nowhere and has really surprised a lot of people.
What I have come to notice this season is any pitcher that Seattle faces is going to just pitch very well. I'm going to take away your excitement for how well he pitched by just saying that. You're talking about I'm looking at it right now on MLB.com. We lead the league in strikeouts by about 70 of them from a batting perspective. Wow. We have the worst average in Major League Baseball. Yes, that's worse than the Chicago White Sox. OPS isn't the worst, but it's way down there. We're a bad offensive team. So if that's what it takes for a Yariel Rodriguez to get his feet under him and get that confidence, good for you guys. I have no qualms about that guy. I hope he's good. You guys deserve a new up and coming guy to kind of take over, but don't put too much stock in shoving it against the Mariners, because we will make anybody look like a Cy Young candidate. That's for damn sure.
I think I saw a stat somewhere too that the Mariners have had, I think, 11 or 13 straight games where their hitters have struck out 10 or more times in a game, which is absolutely ridiculous. But then, and then I guess that we can touch on the other two starters in this series too, to going on that same thread. Kevin Gausman, who got the ball in game 1, had a nice little bounce back start here as well. I have his line here as well. Yeah, so he went 6 innings as well, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, but he also struck out 10. And I guess then maybe you could add on that Jose Barrios today in his start where he got rocked. He gave up 6 hits and 6 innings, 4 earned runs, 2 home runs allowed for Jose Barrios. The fact that it was kind of against a poor offensive team might lead to more red flags on Jose Barrios. So, Riley, do you have a thought on the other 2 starters in the series, Gausman or Barrios?
Oh, yeah. So Gausman, I mean, Gausman has already told us that he's frustrated with the lack of offense, and we go out there and get 2 hit. I mean, that's
1 run on 2 hits.
That's not going to make Kevin Gausman too pleased. Honest to God, and double-digit strikeouts to boot, whether it's against the Mariners or not. It's a confidence thing for our pitchers, and Kevin Gausman needs confidence right now because he is not a Cy Young form pitcher right now. In fact, I'm a little bit worried about Kevin Gausman as this year. He's my number 3 guy right now, it seems like, behind even a Jose Barrios as of right now. And as far as Barrios goes, he might actually pitch better than you thought, and that was at the start of the ball game, retired 5 of the first 6 out via the strikeout. And it seemed like he just kind of lost his stuff. He lost his break and was missing with location and kind of the back end of his start where he gave up those runs in that hard hit in those hard hit balls. I mean, we've seen Jose Barrios get rocked before. And I think at this point, these 2 home runs, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, I think I heard on the broadcast, now leads the major league in home runs giving up as for a pitcher, which is
that
a
is
stat,
correct, yep.
which is a stat you never want to lead in. And again, the 2022 season for Jose Barrios, I can guarantee you he led all of baseball. Josiah Gray with the Nationals, I believe, gave up an astronomical amount. But Barrios did lead the American League in home runs giving up. So if we see this stat again, don't be too floored by it, but at the same time too, great first half of the start, but the second half, the Mariners were getting to him and crushing Jose Barrios stuff because he was just hanging pitches, missing, and we've seen Barrios do that.
Yeah, his season ERA in his last 5 starts has gone from like 2.84 all the way up to 3.63, and that was before he allowed 4 earned runs today. So some negative regression, I guess, coming for Jose Barrios. Chris, did you have a thought on any of those, or did you want to talk about maybe an offensive player here?
I mean, he destroyed us today, and that's your boy George Springer. And I it's tough to say like the whole series. I know he scored 2 runs. I think it was yesterday, but today he has that big home run. I mean, I was pretty confident in Stanek coming in. Stanek's been good, and ball goes over the fence, flips the whole game on its head, and you guys kind of just have to put us back in check. And that offense, you witnessed what I talk about all the time. They cannot score with in situational hitting. They can't do it. So credit to you guys where it's deserved. One thing I will say about good pitchers against Seattle, I don't have an answer for it, but we play them pretty well. We did beat Corbin Burns for Baltimore, so don't beat up Barrios too much. They'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, again, yeah, we'll try not to, but if he gets shelled against a good team, then we might be in trouble there. Because he was great to start the year. I haven't coined him. I thought he'd be an all-star. We'll get to who's an all-star, who's not, probably later in the show. But yeah, our starting pitching has been suspect. But at the end of the day, look, I mean, all these were extremely close ball games. At the end of the day, 2 out of 3 guys got the job done. And if it weren't for the offense, the third guy, Kevin Gausman, was just as good as Yariel Rodriguez. He just didn't pick up the win.
Yeah, and I want to touch on George Springer's home run there because that was massive for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think out of the 11 home runs that George Springer has hit this year, that is probably by far the most impactful that he's had. And I want to add too, we've been talking lately when George Springer's been getting hot. He's been attacking the fastball. He's been hitting the fastball to the pull side. That fastball he hit off Stanek today for the home run was the fastest pitch he has hit a home run off since 2022. For George Springer. So the fact that he's doing this, it looks good. And he looked riled up running the bases too. I've never seen like George Springer make a reaction like that in a long, long time since he became a Blue Jay, honestly. And if you're a fan of like win percentage charts, which Chris, you might want to close your ears on this one. But before that George Springer home run, the Mariners had an 88% chance of winning that game. Afterwards, it was down to just 53%. That's about as big as a game-changing home run as you can get. And I'm glad it fell on our side.
Yeah, that I said some mean things under my breath as I watched him celebrate him rounding the bases. I wasn't thrilled about it, but hey, he got it. He hit it the right center. So I mean, that if you're swinging like that and making that type of contact, you guys should be happy about it. I know you haven't seen it all year, and maybe the last couple of years.
Pleasantly surprised at that hit. I did not expect that.
Yeah, goes back to the underperforming, right? He lives up to his part of the deal. Your team's a completely different team, especially with him being the leadoff guy. And we hate him as it is from Houston.
Yes.
So he has his own
absolutely. We won't get too much into that can of worms right there.
No.
I just want to throw in here too that George Springer quietly on pace for back-to-back 2020 seasons, which if you had that for a guy approaching his mid-30s this late in his career is kind of wild. I want to talk about another outfielder in this series because we got a lot to get to here still, so I want to make sure we roll through this here. And that's just Dalton Varsho. Now with the bat, he struggled. He's got 1 home run in his last 35 days, but you can see the impact Dalton Varsho has. That catch he made in game 1 where he ran up against the wall and smacked, I think StatCast gave him a 5% catch probability. I think there's only been like 17 in baseball this year, and Dalton Varsho has 2 of them. So that's just absolutely amazing for Dalton Varsho. And I want to add in too his catch in game 2 where he kind of trapped it while rolling on the ground and was able to throw to second base and get a double play. Like, I know it's hard to quantify those things in terms of like WAR and value, and I know that the stats are really trying to do so. But Dalton Varsho, with what he can do in the outfield, is absolutely amazing. And if he doesn't win a Gold Glove this year, I say we riot. Absolutely riot. Do you guys have a thought on Dalton Varsho's defense here?
Again, it's just time and time again. Dalton Varsho is making these sensational plays. He should be, without saying who we should DFA that plays center field. Dalton Varsho should be an everyday big league center fielder, no questions asked. I know these catches are from left field, and that's great. I don't care where he hits in the lineup. An outfielder that gives you that good of defense, I just wish the pressure wasn't on him for that power hitter, because we sure as heck know that he can't hit for a batting average. And the pop is nice. The 27 home runs he hit for the Arizona Diamondbacks, like, I sure hope that's not his career high, but it very well could be. But I think for a long time, this guy's going to be an elite defender. I know the Gold Glove rule is stupid as far as, he played this many games in left, this many games in center. I don't care. This guy is a big league outfielder and an elite defender. I mean, I'm not surprised that Varsho made these catches. I was still wowed, but then I remembered, it was Dalton Varsho who made this catch at this time in the ball game, and he goes in to Seattle and does his job essentially as an outfielder.
Yeah, it's demoralizing as a fan of another team, right, from the outsider perspective, when you hit a ball out there and you're like, well, that's caught, right, for the most part.
Yeah.
So not that 5% one, I held out hope, but there he comes out of nowhere and you're like, well, okay, I guess that's what he does, right? I just looked at his WAR when you said that. It's 2.6. Guys doesn't even hit 200 unless it didn't update today. But at the plate, he struggles, right? Has a little pop. But if you're providing that type of value defensively, you could change the game, and he did. He's making game-changing plays for you guys, and much to my chagrin, of course, this week.
Hey, who knows? Maybe he'll be a Seattle Mariner come the end of the month. We'll see if that comes true here.
We'll see.
Just some other player notes before we move on to some of the bullpen stuff here. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. made his third start of the season at third base. Again, he hasn't really been tested down there. We have been waiting for Vladdy to have to make a tough play in the 3 games there, but he did do that. Before then, Ernie Clement was playing a lot of third base. I think that was 8 straight games for Ernie Clement at third base before Vladdy played in this one. So especially with Isaiah kind of Falefa down, it does seem like Ernie has been our everyday third baseman. And I want to throw some love to 2 young guys who have spent a lot of time down in the minor leagues that are making their impact on the Toronto Blue Jays. First one, Spencer Horwitz. He looked so good again in this series, including in game 3. I noticed George Kirby was really trying to throw the curveball down below the zone to try to attack Spencer Horwitz. And then he hits a line drive on one down low in the first inning to get a single. And then in the next one, he has a one hopper to second base. He then proceeds to get 2 more hits. And then in his last at bat, drives one to right field that I thought was gone off the bat, but didn't quite make it. Spencer Horwitz has been really impressive to me. And I also want to throw some love to Leo Jiminez, who got on base 3 times in the last game, 2 hits, including this first big league hit of his career. His line drive to left was a stinger. It was a very solid line drive for Leo Jiminez. So his first major league hit. Congratulations to those boys. Did you guys have a thought on any of those kind of role players for the Blue Jays this series?
Well, I think that Horowitz is just. I don't know if this is what we're going to get at a Spencer Horowitz. I don't know if it's going to be the Davis Schneider effect, we'll call it, where he comes up in a big way and his OPS is above 900. I think it's dipped a little bit. I think it's hanging around the 890s, not 100% sure. But anytime you walk into a game and hit and go 3 for 5, and one of those outs was a hard hit ball. Also, that could have very well gotten down. That's just the way the ball bounces off the bat, and the fact that he also walked twice in this series. He's a guy who walks more than he strikes out. Again, whether that is consistent or not, I don't know. But he's been awfully valuable at the top of this Blue Jays order, like irreplaceable. You can't take this guy into the lineup. You can take a lot of guys and mess with them in this Blue Jays lineup, but one or a couple things are for certain besides of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Like Spencer Horowitz is an untouchable in the top 9 for me. Like, do not take this guy out. He is until he starts to sink, he's an everyday bat. No questions asked.
Riley, tell that to John Schneider, who pinch hit for him in game 2 of this series in the 6th instead of pinch hitting for Kevin Kiermaier. But, another story for another day, I suppose.
Well, no, we're not going to. We're going to get into a John Schneider thing because I lost it. Jesse, you were at work today. You were on break, had the game room on. This wasn't planned for the show, but I want to voice my displeasure with what happened in game 3 because it was hectic. Chris, you're obviously watching the same game as us.
Yep.
Your ticker's working just as much overtime as mine watching this. It's a crazy game. So we go and we intentionally walk your 8-hitter. I can't remember right off the bat because I'm
Canzone, wasn't it?
It was we intentionally walked Dom Canzone with runners on 2nd and 3rd. And that brings up Rojas, who by the way, or not Rojas.
Victor Robles, right?
Robles, yeah.
Who hit a home run already.
Yeah, who had already homered in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, your Skip, I really like service in the fact that in this game, he used every player on the Mariners bench. I think that's cool. I don't think John Schneider's ever did anything like that. He's pulling all stops essentially. So he pinch hits and brings Julio Rodriguez up to the dish. Or sorry, there was a runner on 2nd. Dom goes to 1st. No, the bases were loaded because we ended up hitting pinch hitter Julio Rodriguez, who by the way, the roar from the Mariners crowd when he came up to
That was insane. Yep.
I mean, that was as loud as that park had been all weekend, and that was a turning point in the game. And of course, in our bullpen's fashion, hit by pitch, we somehow managed to escape. I don't know why. And Chris and Michael, back to your team's clutch hitting. I understand about clutch hitting. We've struggled in the past mightily at times, but yeah, I had a huge problem with basically with 2 outs, an intentional walk with John Schneider. I know that wasn't in the script, boys, but that made me really unhappy about doing that. I didn't think it was a smart baseball play.
Well, and then in the 10th, when they had 2 men on, they chose to pitch to Ty France instead of intentionally walking him to set up the double play. Now, the Mariners, they choked and they couldn't score a run across, and the Blue Jays ultimately won that game. But I thought it was inconsistency from John Schneider. If you're going to do one, you got to do them on both spots. Chris, do you have a thought on that there before we talk a little bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to disagree with how Scott handles a couple situations. He's an automatic, I'm going to play the opposites guy, right? Lefty's up, I'm going to put a righty on no matter what the splits are. Guy could have reverse splits. He's going righty on lefty. Enter Mitch Haniger, strikeout, terrible at bats. The Julio thing was awesome because he underwent an MRI after leaving the game yesterday. So I think the excitement was that everybody just assumed he was going to be hurt out a couple games. So him being able to come up in that type of situation was great. You clearly hit him intentionally to have to not have to worry about him and let them blow the roof off. But
yes,
no, joking, of course. But it's I almost feel the same way you do about the manager, right? Like, yes, he played everybody, but the way they're doing it, like we're trotting out Jorge Polanco. We have Ryan Bliss on the roster, and he's just not playing. Just put him down in AAA and let him play every day if that's the case. Or either that, or now the answer is bases are loaded. Go ahead, Ryan Bliss, go win us the game. And you're like, you're asking this guy to do some crazy stuff right now for, his situation. And it's a bad spot either way. People are booing Jorge Polanco. People are booing Ty France. It's a bad situation. And yes, you should always pitch to Ty France no matter what. You should always pitch to Jorge Polanco no matter what. So it ultimately made the right call. It was a good idea.
Jesse, before you take the microphone, before Jesse decides to go to the next thing, I just remembered when you were going off about Paul Sewald, I sent this picture to Jesse, and I finally just got it back. It's Kevin Cash's face and Scott Service's face, and Kevin Cash has got tears down his eyes, and it says, "We need to take this picture up because his spin rate dropped 1.2%. The xwOBA on the second lefty in the order increases by 0.07%." And then it's got Scott Service going, "It's time for Paul Sewald to pitch, LOL." That's one of that meme right there. My phone. Yeah, whatever. If you've seen it, you've seen it. I'm going to post it after this, actually, because as soon as you mentioned that, and it's just like, oh my God. Remember I sent that to you, Jesse. We had a good laugh about that.
That was the answer to everything. It's just enter Paul Sewald, and we're going to live with what happens.
Yeah, I know. Hey, some managers have their guys, and then a lot of them are overthinkers.
Yeah, he does both, but I do a lot of things to get Paul Sewald back on this team. I think Seattle would greatly appreciate that.
He was good for you guys, man. He was good for you guys.
That is a great meme.
It is.
All right, well, let's get to the bullpen here. We don't have to spend much time. We've already talked about the major culprits. Just shout out to Brandon Littell, who was able to get that out there. I got really anxious in game 2, knowing the Blue Jays were up 5-0 and just needed 6 outs to get from our bullpen, and we almost blew it. But that's besides the fact that's par for the course for people who have watched this Toronto Blue Jays team lately. I just want to throw some love to my guy, Nate Pearson, who came in and was able to limit the damage here in this game today, and Trevor Richards, who did give up a home run, but ultimately was able to get the job done here as well in a Blue Jays bullpen that has been predominantly weak. No more thoughts on that, before we head on to the farm? We've talked most of the bullpen guys.
No, let's, there's not much to say about our bullpen. It's pretty, like Chris knows, it's pretty depleted. We don't have a lot of healthy guys. And your guy Pearson coming in that situation, Jesse, that was huge. That's one of the best relief appearances all year.
Chad Green got a save too. I do think he's getting a little lucky. And when we get closer to the trade deadline, I'm actually going to make the case of why we should trade Chad Green and why we should trade him now. But we'll save that for another future episode. I just want to highlight some things really quickly here that are down on the farm before we get into our mock trade ideas between these teams. And first one, Eric Swanson, who is a guy both of you know quite well, has actually looked a little bit better. I think he's scored 3 or 4 straight scoreless appearances for Buffalo now. And there was some talk pregame show about Eric Swanson is probably going to be joining this Blue Jays team again sometime soon, which I think is a little early for Eric Swanson just based on how disastrous his season was so far. But hey, worth noting. Top prospect Arun Namala is back in Dunedin after his little bit of motion and is crushing the ball. And I want to bring the name Gabriel Cancel to your attention, who is down in Buffalo, who we signed out of independent ball, who is absolutely destroying the ball for the Buffalo Bisons right now. A guy who kind of came out of nowhere. He's like 27 years old. A guy who's this hot, honestly, could come to the team and give us some sparks. And then 2 more notes. Joey Votto hit a home run on his rehab assignment, his first officially in the Blue Jays farm system. So there's a chance Joey Votto comes up and becomes the first major leaguer this season over the age of 40 to play, by the way. And last one, which might be the most important one, Ricky Tiedemann is on his way back to Buffalo. He's going to join the Buffalo Bison's rotation. He's scheduled to do about 80 pitches. I think 2 or 3 starts down in Buffalo. And if it looks well, he could be back joining this Blue Jays rotation. So do either of you guys have any other thought on any of the stuff that happened down on the farm?
I have the craziest takeaway, and it's the least important thing. Gabriel Cancel was a international prospect pickup for the Kansas City Royals organization, I believe. I only know that courtesy.
I can't believe you know that. Wow.
MLB The Show. Thank you very much. And middle infielder, I think, Jesse,
yes.
isn't he?
He's played some third and short for this team.
We won't see him in the big leagues. I just wanted to flex the knowledge.
No, we might.
Because we have company. But there's a name you've heard, Chris, is Ricky Tiedemann, and it's kind of like a phantom story almost, because we hear about this. It's like, oh, he's getting so close. Oh, he'll be in the big leagues. He'll be in the big leagues. Boom, injured, not in the big leagues. There's a little bit of a setback, and you guys know nothing about pitching struggles. Your prospects who have come up, you can talk about how bad your hitting is, but I would not bash your pitchers. I mean, some of the best starters in baseball. Unfortunately for us, we have to get ours on the outside. You have some great homegrown talent. And with us, I mean, Chris Bassett, we signed him as a free agent. Barrios traded him. Gosman, free agent. We haven't exactly had a good homegrown Blue Jays pitching prospect come up since, like, I'm not even going to count
Manoah would be the only one.
Disaster now. We can't say. No, I'm talking about a good career. Like, it's been Roy freaking Halladay, and before him, Dave Steve, and there's no one else in between. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. Juan Guzman, maybe.
Chris Carpenter, maybe, but it's like you're going way back.
It doesn't matter. He didn't pitch for he had an 8 ERA with the Blue Jays, and then goes.
Noah Syndergaard was drafted by the Blue Jays, but still.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But he didn't play for it. What I'm saying,
Stroman. Marcus Stroman is the answer.
Great. How many games did we win when Stroman was playing for us? I mean,
back-to-back ALCSs.
Yes, sure. And now where is he?
Yeah, in the Bronx. Boo.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have a thought on Tiedemann coming up to the minor leagues?
I like him. I'm a fan. I'm very bad with ages, by the way. So I did have to look this one up. So he's only going to be like 22 in a little, probably a month or so. So for as many ups and downs as this kid has had, he's still young. He can still do it. The injuries are alarming for sure. The way that they kind of just seemingly never go away, or it's something different every time. That much I haven't looked into, but that's got to be exciting for you guys. Get somebody up here, especially, I know we're going to get into trade talks, but I would feel like the elephant in the room is we're getting ready to start selling. So now you have to start rebuilding, right? You need this, you need this guy to come up. You need him to, be productive, but you have to let him grow, and you just kind of have to let him eat it. If it's bad the rest of the year, so be it. I know Riley likes to kick people out as soon as humanly possible, but I think he's one of them that you just kind of have to, let him grow into it. In terms of Eric Swanson, we'll go back to another meme of what have you done to my boy? What? I knew he was good in Seattle, but a 1.68 ERA in 2022. 2023 a 2.97 great, and I know there was a few off the field things that took place. So completely understand in that regard. But yeah, I mean that's let's back up. Going back to those off the field things, it is good to hear that he is starting to pitch well again. I would like to see him back in the majors. No hard feelings of him. I hope you get a good piece back with Erik Swanson.
Yeah, us too, man. Us too.
So do we. Speaking of Erik Swanson and the way the Blue Jays acquired him, let's talk a little trade, guys. 35 minutes into this episode, let's get to the little fun part here. The Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners have linked together to make some notable trades in their franchises in the past. We all know the Teoscar Hernandez for Erik Swanson and Adam Macko trade. That's the most recent one. But I did some looking back, too. There was a few, trades for cash for players to be named later, guys including Trent Thornton, Taijuan Walker, Daniel Vogelbach, all were Blue Jays to Mariners related trades there. And there's also some notable ones. I know, Riley, you'll remember Brandon League for Brandon Morrow was a nice trade there between these two franchises. And it worked out for us. And if you want to go back to the late 1900s here, the Blue Jays traded Paul Spoljaric and Mike Timlin for Jose Cruz Jr. back in the days of the Seattle Mariners.
Paul Spoljaric. Yeah, Paul Spoljaric.
The friend of the show, Ole Tomlin.
Lefty Canadian pitcher.
Yeah, he'll say someone from Ukrainian heritage or that side of the world to come through there and make his mark with the Blue Jays. But that being said, they have made a bunch of trades in the team's history, and it really does feel like the Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners are actually going to link up for another trade at some point within these next 3 weeks here. And I drew together 4 mock trades. Not saying they're going to happen. Don't even know how close these trades are because baseball GMs are wild and they're probably going to throw in a name of a guy none of us have ever heard of to go out and make a deal. But I just want to hear what you guys think of these 3 trades. And I guess, Riley, you can do kind of the Blue Jays side of the things if you would do this trade or if this makes sense. Or Chris, you can be like, why in the world would the Mariners do this? You Blue Jays guys are insane. And then we can kind of just go from there. You guys got it?
This is going to be so much fun.
I'm excited.
I love pretending I'm a GM. Let's do this thing, man.
All right, get your GM hat on, and I have 4 trades they're kind of different levels. Some are more minor trades, some are more higher end trades. But the first one, Riley, and this involves trading your guy, Danny Jansen. The Mariners really need some thump at catcher. The Mitch Garver thing really hasn't worked out this well. So my proposed trade to the Seattle Mariners is that we give you Danny Jansen. You give us back Mitch Garver, who, aside from the home run he hit today, has really struggled. We'll take on that contract, all that money that Jerry Dipoto gave him, and you throw in a nice little prospect sweetener for it. Say, a guy like Jonathan Clase. Does that make sense for either of you?
Yeah, Chris is all over that. And again, for me, I mean, I've already come to terms with that Jansen's probably not going to be the guy. He's going to go and be a big league catcher somewhere else and do well. But again, he could be clogged up because Cal Raleigh is a fantastic big league catcher. That guy's got some really good tools. Probably my favorite Seattle Mariner. Anytime you got a switch hitting catcher, and his last name is basically my name, just pronounced different. I would do that trade because I know. Jonathan Clase, is he anything like Emmanuel Clase?
I doubt it.
He's an outfielder.
Okay, well, I was gonna say if he could throw like that, then yeah, no brainer.
He hit 176 in 34 at bats this year, majors. He was up for a little while.
How old is this guy?
22.
22 is fine. He's not 24. Okay.
Yeah, you could. I. That's not like I say done because it's just something new. Right? Let's try something different. Okay. Garver can go. I like him. I want Mitch Garver to succeed, but
we need guys who can hit. There's a lot of
he isn't one.
There's a lot of swing and miss, but at least he can. You want to talk about guys with surprising power, like Varsho, and then you basically have a worse defender, right-handed Dalton Varsho in Haniger.
All right. And for my next trade here, because the Mariners, every team going to the playoff needs some bullpen help. And the Blue Jays, for how bad their bullpen is, do have a couple arms that are working well and probably some that are going to be traded. So here's the proposed trade between Toronto and Seattle.
This feels like a big one.
Toronto will give Seattle Jimmy Garcia, who might be one of our best relievers, if not the best relievers in Major League Baseball. We'll also throw in a guy who's been effective like Trevor Richards this year. And I thought, what can we get for two middle reliever prospects? They're probably not going to get a ton because we never do. But I thought two young pitching prospects, Brody Hopkins and Ryan Bliss. I think Bliss is a pitching prospect at least.
No,
What do you guys take on that?
Ryan Bliss is
second baseman.
He played today.
You can't have Bliss. No. I don't know. I don't even know who the hell the first guy is. You could have him. Brody Hopkins is yours.
Jesse dug into the system a little bit.
He's the 23rd ranked prospect. He's yours, my man. Pick
right.
somebody
Fangraphs
else.
had him 7 coming into the season. So
slow her down. I'm gonna pull up the Mariners prospect list here.
I use MLB. Who else? Here, you could have. I don't know. I don't even know these guys. A couple of them. Brody Hopkins, I've never heard
dude,
of
it's all
life.
right. I don't know heart. Jesse's the minor league fiend.
I am very anti prospect hoarding. So you'll notice, like, so I feel like some of these deals are going to include some of the big guys.
I mean, if we're talking pitchers, right under that Bliss is Michael Morales, who's a AA guy who's only 21. That sounds pretty good.
Depending on how he's doing, you might. I wouldn't do that for relievers. We grow relievers on trees. We know Austin Voth good.
Yeah.
Austin Voth pitching today. I was like, I can't believe this is the same guy I used to actually actively bet against when he was pitching for the Nationals.
Yeah, but, we're in good shape in terms of that. So okay. I want bullpen. We need bullpen. Is Garcia lefty?
He's a righty.
Righty.
Tops out. I've seen him throw. You know what? He's thrown triple digits once, if not twice, this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but I've seen 100 on the gun for sure once early on. It might have even been the first weekend or in the end of spring. He was touching three figures there.
That's all right. We're going to trade him to Baltimore anyway, get some of their prospects. It's fine. Seattle needs offense, right? In the worst way. And boy, do we have some offensive names that if the Blue Jays do decide to go these routes, I want to see if this is enough to pry some of our star players away from the Toronto Blue Jays here. And this first one is probably the biggest one. Chris, we will trade you Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And this is what we want in return. Okay. We want your number one catcher,
Let me write this
Harry
down.
Ford.
Okay.
We want number one prospect, Harry Ford.
Yep.
We want probably what is my favorite prospect in your whole system, which is Lorenzo Montes. I want him, and I want one of your young pitchers, whether it's Brian Wu or whether it's Emerson Hancock, something like that. Do you think that's enough to get that trade done?
That was quite a groan, Chris, about
Montes
there. Yeah,
Montez is my guy. He might be my favorite minor leaguer in the whole
interesting, man.
Montes is the one I have to keep. You could have Harry Ford. I personally like Hancock. Fun fact, I was at his major league debut in Seattle.
Nice.
He can go. That's fine. You can't have Lazaro and you can't have Celestin. I'd give you
not even for Vladdy, eh?
No. Let me back up. I am a multiple move type of guy. So I would need some sort of and I don't trust it, of course, until it would happen, but I would need some sort of agreement. I need Jerry DiPoto to reach out to me personally to let me know that, hey, Chris, we are making more moves. If you're going to deplete the farm. I don't care. But I want to win now. I don't care what it takes. Right? A lot of people poo-poo on the Rangers. Oh, they bought. I don't care what you have to do to win me a title. Those banners fly forever.
Yep.
Figure it out. Right? I don't care what 2028 looks like. That doesn't bother me. I might not even be alive by then. We are in 2024. We are in first place by the All-Star break. Maybe not. However, figure it out. So if that does mean we have to move Montes and there's another big deal coming behind it, I'm fine with it. But in a vacuum, Vlad doesn't fix everything that needs to get fixed.
And Riley, from the Blue Jays side, do you think that's enough of a return for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
I'm getting lost right now in the Mariners prospects. Can you repeat the question? No, okay, listen, if we're going to give up, honestly, I feel like Vlad's if this was back the truck, if we had a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now that's playing at his essentially runner-up MVP type, you can ask for the freaking sun and get that. But right now, Like his value isn't at its all-time high that it has been. So you would hope that there's like at least 3 good prospects in return back for that. And then if you had to flip, if there was more to the deal, sometimes you can go back and forth on the table. Like, oh, well, we'll throw in a current bullpen arm, or we can give you a backup catcher. Like, you can add little sweeteners in it that don't mean anything. Those guys aren't going to stick
cash
around.
can go to bonus pool money can go. Like you can always make things
The
work.
thing that and those
we
contracts
need cash. Apparently, we're broke.
Really?
Oh, I don't know.
Jerry DePoto's broke, didn't you know?
No, not him. Stanton, John Stanton. Listen, don't get me. We're not going to go there. I'll take over the whole show. But we always take cash.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and then my last one, guys. We don't have to spend too much time on this, but we'll trade you Bo Bichette. You're going to give us Dominic Canzone, Bryce Miller, who's one of those young starting pitchers that you have that the Blue Jays could use, and then we'll take, I don't know, Johnny Farmello, who was your number 6 prospect on Fangraphs. I personally don't love that trade as much. I don't even know if I'd do it, but what's your side on that?
I wouldn't go Miller. You could have Hancock can go. He's expendable. You could have Hancock in any deal you want for one of your stars, I would say. Yeah. We can't keep them all. Sure, you could have Farmel, right? Again, like you can't say no to everything. If you want these types of guys, you have to go pay for them. And this, I said this on our show. And one of my biggest fears is Seattle as a whole is going to strike out everywhere, not just with the Blue Jays. Because all the Baltimore Orioles have to do is pick up the phone and say, we want X, and they will have X, right? Whoever that person is. And it's going to be, it could be an overpay. You might be like, wow, they didn't have to do that. But if the Orioles want to make a move, they could do whatever they want and get whoever they want. They want Vlad's theirs. Simple as that.
I also do think too that maybe like teams won't get as much for these high end prospects because all Corbin Burns cost was DL Hall and Joey Ortiz, who, Ortiz is having a good year in Milwaukee and DL Hall.
Ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah, but like that's all it took to get a top of the rotation Corbin Burns, which, seems funny to me.
Those types of trades are weird though, because the Brewers were just in a weird spot. I get like not a weird spot, but they weren't ever going to keep Burns. So they just take what I assume is the best deal. Yeah. And then the Orioles' hope was that they could, because I guess it might not look as good if Burns doesn't re-sign, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, they gave up Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. Like,
I mean, it doesn't look as bad. Just thinking about bad trades in the last three whatever years. Like, it's not as bad as, and I know your boy Andrew's a Braves fan. So like, I'm sure he was just tickled pink when they basically got a guy who can hit 50 home runs in Matt Olson for like not nobody's Shea
Langoliers, was it?
Like,
yeah,
but like a guy who's not gonna be like you can't account. And we traded who we traded Kirby Schneed and Gunnar Hoagland and maybe someone else for freaking Matt Chapman. Like they were just, I don't know what, poor Oakland. I mean, my home away from home, and I've never been there essentially, but it's like, man, some of these trades, it all depends on what side of the bed these GMs wake up, it seems, because you get super lopsided. And yeah, that Burns for me definitely falls in there. And I hope if we are selling, we at least get lucky down the road with a prospect. And I mean, you can't account for that now, but you can just prey on luck essentially, because it's going to come down to that. We're going to get a prospect here in the next 15 days, whatever it is. We're going to get a prospect in 15 days. And hopefully we can look back at this and go, yeah, okay, that kind of worked out.
All I know is that if the Blue Jays and Mariners do link up for a trade some point within these next 3 weeks, Chris, you're the first call we're going to make. So
I'd be so, if I, let me put this into context. If I wake up to a Jeff Passan notification, because it's probably going to come at 2 a.m. or something insane, that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a Seattle Mariner. Yes, I do want to see who it was, but I really won't care. Right? I could say no to every hypothetical trade possible. However, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will be, if again, whatever, if that's what happens, you're just like, okay, done. We move forward. I don't care who. You could have Lazaro Montez. Like, I'll get over it. Right? Because I reverted back to the Luis Castillo thing, right? That was, they dropped a bomb on me. That wasn't a possibility when it happened.
Noel V. Marte went in that trade, and
Noel V. Marte,
80 game
Arroyo.
suspension.
But they were prospect hoarders, right? Just sitting there like, oh, we gave up too much. And it's like, you just got your ace. But my holdback was, you have to make him sign the extension. They did. That's an A+ move, no matter how you look at it.
Do that every time, every single time. Right?
Yep.
Trade your prospects for a starting pitching, and it works out wonders. Or I hope you're listening, Ross Atkins. But story for another day. All right, we're running a little long. We're almost at the 50-minute mark. So I just wanted to run, Chris. I have 3 rapid-fire questions I just wanted to throw at you. They're all Seattle Mariners related, so I think you'll know them quite well. My first question. They're not trivia,
right, go ahead,
but it's more like just kind of fun things. My first question is, why does Cal Raleigh hate the Blue Jays? Because he owns us. He absolutely destroys us. Hit that home run in the playoffs against us, all that stuff. Luckily, he didn't do too much damage against us this series. But what does Cal Raleigh have against our team?
I think he just gets juiced up. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's just the Canadian type thing, but Toronto being Eastern, like, you guys almost like take over the stadium. I don't comprehend it at all, but he's just defending his turf. That's all. That's what he does, and that's what he knows.
Okay, because that was my next question. My question was, as a Mariners fan, how do you feel about all the Toronto Blue Jays fans from like Vancouver, from Calgary, all coming south and evading Safeco, which I know it's not Safeco, but as far as I'm concerned, it's always Safeco. No, it's Safeco. How do you feel about the Blue Jays fans coming through there?
I get it. I mean, what are you going to do? I didn't know that Toronto, like the Blue Jays, just are Canada. Right?
Oh,
it's just
everywhere.
like, hey, we don't care. We just support Canada. We support the Blue Jays, even though we're on the West Coast. I will say I definitely hated it at the beginning because I think, again, a cheap owner, like, will sell Blue Jays stuff in the store, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd hate that if I go to my home team and we're selling jerseys the other way.
I'm pretty sure that I couldn't tell you that happened this year. I'll have to scroll Twitter and stuff to see, but it's definitely happened in the past. So you're like, deep down, you're like, are you kidding me? Like, screw these guys. Why are they coming? You're like, what? I don't, but whatever.
With that being said,
I would go to jail. I would go to jail for arson if the Rogers Center started selling 99 pinstripe Yankee jerseys at the Rogers Center. Like, I would be locked away for life if there was ever a reality where that happened. Thankfully, not. So for me to put myself in your shoes, to be kind of empathetic to it, that would drive me insane. I can't account for being a West Coast fan. I do not drive down to the Mariners game, so I'm excluded from that part of it. I will invade ballparks to the south of me and not way westward.
Listen, big picture, it's weird, right? Like, I don't want opposing fans, but think about, like, I'm trying to get to every major league stadium, right? Throughout my fandom. Like, it sucks when you're somewhere and they're like, looking at you weird because you got a Mariners shirt. You're like, I'm just here. I paid money to be here too. Like, let me just enjoy the game. I don't know. Like, why does everybody gotta be mean to me? I'm just trying to hang out. But listen, I guess we'll allow it. Now that I know you guys, you come from a good spot, so I guess I'll allow it even more than I have in the past.
We can speak for all Blue Jays fans. They're all like us, guaranteed. Definitely.
Absolutely not. Don't buy that crap. One freaking bit. Whatever you've heard about Canadians is true to an extent.
Okay.
Gotta love. Look in the crevices in small towns, Chris. That is your best bet.
All right.
City are a real thing, even in Canada. Anyways, last question I want to go, Chris. And I want to take your memory back about 12 years ago to see how things were. And this was a where were you when moment in Seattle Mariners history. Where were you when Hernandez in 2012 on August 15th?
Oh, my God.
Where were you? Do you have a memory what you were doing at the time?
I don't. And that's unfortunate. That hurts. Wow. No, because
long time ago, 12 years.
It is.
I mean, so because I wasn't like super tuned in like online, right? I was a fan, but you're only really watching Baseball Tonight, right? Like I didn't access Mariners games like I do now. I watched anything and everything, but I think I just caught whatever was, whenever they jump in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where I was. Yeah, that sucks. Hey, you just made me. That hurts.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
buddy. Did not mean to bring up painful
No,
memories. We
you know
love
what?
Felix Hernandez on this
With
show.
the
Well, big
pitchers
Felix guy.
with the pitchers you guys got now, I'm not going to jinx anything, but there is a lot of great hope because you have a very good guys. Maybe not Felix Hernandez. There was only really one of him. He was a dominant pitcher for a long time, but at least you're broadening your chances. Which with a good 4 or 5 pitchers in your rotation that have a better possibility than most pitchers in Major League Baseball to achieve that feat.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That's what the thousand swords, right? They're coming at you every day. We've got, and what I always say is you want the season, the season rotation, okay, but now you get to the playoffs and you need a top 3, right? Who's your 3 guys? Who are you starting? And we're coming with Castillo. Say what you want about him, but he's our guy. Gilbert.
Every time I've seen him pitch, he's the best. So,
right? Or pick your order of who you want to put. You really can. They're all interchangeable. So playoff series, I'm confident in our pitching matchups, right? Pull Miller out of the bullpen, whatever. But yeah, I mean, but nothing compared to Felix. He's the guy. And I would almost feel like he started it's Felix Day.
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody has a day, right? You guys are probably, it's Bassett Day. Like Chris Bassett has a day. But again, it's got so far gone to it's everybody's day. Skeens is the new one, right? It was Strasburg for a little while. Now
I love Skeens Day.
I think I do Kikuchi more than any of the
and
other
I think
guys.
it's Kikuchi as well.
I want him back. Send him back.
Oh, he was. I thought it was weird. He was. I've looked at his baseball reference page a few times. You want him back? He was not very good for you at all, Chris.
He was an all-star.
Made an all-star game for Seattle. Yeah.
Well, he must have had that in his first half. I know his.
He did. He was bad.
I know his ERAs were not good with the Seattle Mariners, and he walked a ton of hitters, which that was a trend for him.
Yeah, he was an all-star that one year. He's a real Ubaldo Jimenez. Really just shoved it for that half a season and packed it in.
Remember that, Riley, for your Seattle Mariners Immaculate Grid All-Star thing. You can throw Kikuchi in there.
Seattle Mariners Immaculate Grid. Oh, I could come up with a better one than that. Let me cook till the end of the episode.
All right, I'll think about it here. But we do got to go. We've been here way too long.
Oh, I got no time to think about it then. Okay, it's fine.
Tweet it out, Riley. Tweet it out later. Chris,
right.
We just want to say thank you so much for joining us. This was a treat. Like we said, it was very long overdue. We're going to be in touch. We're probably going to have you on the show again. We'll have your co-host Andrew on the show after the Atlanta series in the fall, assuming he's not doing anything. We know how those podcast hosts can be.
He's busy,
always up to something, but
who knows?
all that stuff. But we would love to have him on here. Chris, is there anything else you want to plug at the end of this episode here?
I don't have nothing. I mean, my podcast, Coach's Sons podcast, myself and my co-host Andrew, where you guys here on Buds Blue Jays are strictly Blue Jays. I have to get my Blue Jays info from you guys. I love that. But we try to grasp everything. Right now we're doing every other week. We're going to come out with a season in review episode in 2 weeks from now. So just be on the lookout for that. We'll definitely bury you guys a good bit, take all your guys off you, send them all over the league. We'll be in good shape there. But that's really all I've got. Just a podcast. Feel free to jump in. But I love what you guys are doing. I've loved it since day one. You guys are awesome, and we talk offline all the time. And I say that to people like, yeah, I talked to these guys from Canada. Like, how the hell do you know them? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. It just kind of happened, and here we are. So I appreciate you guys having me on. My little input about the Seattle Mariners. Hope your listeners enjoy.
I think they will, man. It's good to always get a outside perspective. I mean, you're certainly versed with the Seattle Mariners knowledge, so you can tell me, because I thought of a name. I thought, can you confirm that this man was an all-star? I had to dive deep into my.
I got Baseball Reference open, Riley. Let's
go ahead.
JJ Putz.
Should have been, yeah.
Likely, yep.
Okay.
He's our closer.
Perfect. All right, then I come up
All-Star in 2007 when he finished a season-high 65 games for Seattle.
13th in the MVP voting?
Mm-hmm.
Not Cy Young voting, MVP. Not Cy Young.
I had to pull the book from my library. I shout out for all those answers, the weird ones usually come from MVP Baseball 2005. I just imagine I'm scrolling through the rosters in my head, and I just kind of got a click, and I went over to relief pitchers. I passed, you got Freddie Garcia would be the top guy in the Mariners, and I believe the top guy for you might have had. Here's another fun one. You might have had in that game. I think he only pitched for a short time. Jeff Nelson.
He was our setup guy. I don't know if he would ever get in
for a hot second, but JJ Putt's definitely great name guy, and he was a Giant, I'm pretty sure as well.
Eric
Jeff
O'Flaherty,
Nelson,
George
Seattle
Sherrill,
Mariner, 2001.
Nice.
There you go. There's one for you.
Good call.
One of my favorite Mariners to use on the Immaculate Grid is Scott Spezio. He was in Oakland A early in his career. He's got a great name.
Russell Brand.
We gotta go.
One.
Guys, we got to get out of here.
I know. It's fun. It's fun to name.
We'll just not. Here's some dude just dropping names. Love it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. And baseball's wonderful. Guys can just sit around and name all baseball players for hours. Speaking of hours, our hour's up. Our therapy session is done.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Guys.
We will be back to recap the San Francisco Giants series. We're going to try to get another guest on for then too. And for Riley McConnell, for Chris, thank you. I'm Jesse Burrell. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you again.
Thanks.